Hey, this is Taylor Major with Major Outdoors, and we're going to be talking about swim jigging today. The different types of swim jigs, which ones I like, and then here's just a little preview on the swim jig I got. This is a bluegill one. So we're going to talk about first what kind of swim jigs I like. So this is one of them. This is a poison attack head. A couple different companies make these. MWBA, Dirty Jigs makes a version. I think theirs is called the Poison Attack Jig. And then like Lifted Jigs all make this one. It's called the Poison Head. And this is a really good head because it's a little bit different than most swim jigs. When the first swim jigs came out, it looked more like this KVD one, and I'll kind of go over the differences between them and pros and cons of what really was and now what it is. So this one, it's kind of the original. A little bit wider, lighter, super light weed guard, pretty light wire guard, and then this one's got two rattles, but that's kind of up to your disposal. And then this is kind of what I've been moving to. This is a California swim jig is what I call it. It's got a nice big head, it's a 1/2 ounce, nice big weed guard, and a nice big hard gauge hook, okay? And when I'm running these swim jigs, you know, I like to bring them around weeds, lily pads, cover, whatever it has to be. And then there's two of them that I kind of swim, and I'll kind of show you all of them. So this is also one I like to use. This is a Terminator jig. You know, this one also has a made rattle in it. And this one, same thing, you know, it's got a heavier, this is a normal, like, kind of like a flipping jig, but you can swim it too, which I really like. Little lighter weed guard compared to the California jig, but still super stout hook, you know. And then I got a boot tail on there. And then the other one is, you know, you can kind of just take a nice little skipping jig, you know, something you want to roll cast underneath docks or laydowns and stuff, and be able to get that big body profile and skip it underneath there. So those are the jigs I like. The California jig, I'll link all this in below. This is actually the OutKast new cage fighter jig, I believe. And then this one is the Terminator Pro Series Jig. And then we're going to talk about trailers that I like to use. So there's about 2 or 3 different trailers that I'm kind of a big fan of. And you saw when I was showing you, you know, most of them have just a boot tail swim bait, which is a great choice, don't get me wrong. Then this one, I have a more or less the big twister tail. This is called the Eeliminator. Then there's one other kind of grouping that I like to use. It's kind of the crawdad form. So this is just a Rage Menace, and then this is that all pro jig from Rapala, or Terminator technically. So this one I like. So you have your Craw patterns basically. So you got the Space Monkey, really big flappers, little appendages. This is the Rage Craw. And then the Rage Menace. So they're all different, you know. Rage Menace, a little slimmer, a little tighter profile, you know, the bigger you get. And the thing with this is, you know, the smaller you go, it's gonna sink more because it's got less resistance to go down. So if you want to throw a 1/2 ounce but you still want to be higher in the water column, then kind of move to one of these, because this will keep your bait actually higher in the water column. If you want to get a little bit lower, then you probably want to go with something like this. Or, you know, if you're really just trying to keep it above water, you know, you can go down to 3/8 and put one of these big jigs on there. It's kind of matter, you know, are you fishing cold, pressured water? Then we got the Eeliminator, which is right here. I actually really like this trailer because it's something different. You know, a lot of people have been throwing paddle tails, which I also have. So these are the Strike King paddle tails, pretty white. And then I've been using a lot of the Mossy Creek paddle tails. You can get a nice bulk order in a lot of colors. So I'll send you guys all a link there to get these two. Super durable as well. But you know, the Mr. Twister Tail, I mean, you can get the Mr. Twister Tail name brand, but the Eeliminator, you know, it's still a bulky profile. You know, it's a flat bottom, so it's nice and easy to skip. So if you want to run this around some docks, and it's just a different look. You know, a lot of people have been throwing the same stuff, okay? So then I'll talk about one other thing I really like to do, and then I'm gonna rig one up for you. So, here we go. Here's our Rapala, and then a Mossy Creek tackle paddle tail. I think this is the 3.5 size or 3.3. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring the skirt down like that, hold jig like this. So you have a wire keeper. This is the nice, I like these wire keepers than the lead wire keepers. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at where I want this body swim bait to look. So it's gonna rig up about halfway through the hook, so then you got good boot tail look. So I like to pull the weed guard in and hold it like that. You can move it to the side. You can do whatever feels more natural, but do whatever feels good. Then I like to take this, slowly thread this on. And then when I get to that rib, I like to just peek it out. And I like to pull the weed guard around. And so I'm already at that wire keeper. And what I'm gonna actually do, because the wire keeper takes up some of the plastic, right? I'm gonna take your standard Gorilla Glue, right? Get this at basically any hardware store, but the reason why you want to use Gorilla Glue in one stance is because Gorilla Glue actually expands. So it's going to be taking up the space that you already ripped off with the hook. So all you're going to do is you're going to take this and you're going to ever so lightly put it by the wire. And I mean, you're putting barely anything. And you're just going to, then once you get that, then you're going to slide it all the way up, push it against there, and then you're just going to pull it back a little bit until it feels right. So that is how I rig my swim jigs, right there. Okay. Next thing I'm going to tell you about, that's a sweet tip of mine, but you have to do. This is something I really believe in. I have it done with these two jigs already. You can see there's something different, so I'll get the other matching one of this for the California jig. The big difference, if you hold them level, is the skirt length. Skirt length matters a ton in this, because the reason why you trim these skirts with any scissors basically is so when these flap, they don't get caught in the silicone skirts and then miss up, and then they get caught like a crankbait does in line. So then that can happen. So what I like to do, I'm just gonna take a nice purple one right here. Ba-bam. All I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my scissors. Oh man. Oh jeez. They're way back here. Look at that. All I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut at an angle. So the boot tail is gonna most likely have most of the action right when it starts to get smaller, right in here. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut at an angle because I don't want them all to be straight. Straight, I feel, I've cut these a while. If you cut them straight, then they kind of actually bunch up pretty well. So you kind of want to just angle every other cut. One up, one down. Make sure you don't miss any. And one thing I've really noticed about this, when I do this, is my hookup ratio is so much better, because what they see right there is they see the profile of the bait where your hook is actually, right? And then there's always going to be a couple stragglers, just knock those out. But then they're not going to short strike it as much. You're going to have them fully engulf it and really get the whole meat of the jig. The other thing I want to tell, the other thing is that with doing these smaller skirts, it's more compact, so you're most likely going to catch more fish. You're making a smaller profile, and I think it just looks a lot cleaner. The other thing I recommend is trimming your weed guards. These Terminators are actually pretty good. You can see that, I don't like to go past the barb with my weed guard. So something like where you get these custom made jigs, you can see that it's way at the bend of the hook. So what I'll do with these is I'll cut at an angle. Make sure you cut it with the hook. So you're going with the hook. Ever so lightly, just take like an angle cut and just take a little bit off. And all I'm using is a Rapala braid cutter. And so now you got a thinner hook, and then it hooks up a little bit better. I'm gonna probably just take a wee bit more off. And a lot of your, when you're doing this, a lot of your bait companies, especially your local guys that you can get really good deals with, they'll custom make these and they're gonna put a bigger weed guard so you can trim it down so you're only at the barb, and that's kind of where I like to be. Last closing tip where I like to fish this. So, you know, obviously docks, you know, flats, you know, structure pieces. One thing I like to do is I like to skip these around dock pylons. You can fish like a normal jig around docks. It's something a little bit different because a lot of people are just flipping normal jigs with Craw trailers. One thing I like to flip with is, this is my GLX 7'1" medium heavy extra fast tip. I like to be able to feel the weight of the bait because a lot of your strikes, they're going to be moving with the bait. So then you're just going to feel the weight of the bait go away. The other thing is I like a high reel. So this is actually a Shimano Corrado DC with a 7'4" to 1 gear ratio. It's kind of a middle, it's a higher ground one, but it's not super duper fast, so you can slow retrieve it and still get where you want to be. The other two rods I use a 7'10" extra fast tip, same thing, but it's a medium, so I'm going to be throwing those smaller baits. And then my other one is when I'm in open water, I have a 7'5" extra fast tip, medium heavy, and that really just maximizes my distance. So I tell you, you know, the average person, you're going to be throwing about a 7-foot medium heavy, you know, just get a fast tip or extra fast tip. And then I like to throw braid to fluorocarbon. So this is a 40-pound braid, Power Pro, and then this is actually a 20-pound fluorocarbon by FC Sniper. I really like the fluorocarbon. It holds up really good, especially when you get rubbed up against docks and stuff. If you have any questions below, please comment them. Like and subscribe. This is Measured Outdoors with another tips and tricks video.